Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another IEEE-USA webinar, Building Financial Strength from the Start. I'm your host, Jonathan Cho. Today's webinar is done in partnership with the IEEE Member Discounts Program. To learn more about the program, you can go to the link provided at the bottom of the stream below shortly or in the comment section. Our presenter for today is Kyle Cunningham, Wealth Management Advisor with Northwestern Mutual Wealth Management Company, who returns to us for another insightful presentation on financial literacy. Kyle specializes in personal wealth management and retirement income planning and has been in practice for 14 years. He helps clients build and protect wealth using tax advantage investment and financial planning strategies. But without further ado, I will now pass it off to our presenter. Welcome back, Kyle. We're very excited for what you have in store for our audience today.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's great to be back. This is my fourth presentation, and it's always a pleasure to be here with IEEE. My aim today is to share a bit about myself for those who are new, and then get right into basics around building financial strength and security. And some of the basics are often lost on us. So I think everyone's going to be able to take away something, hopefully one or two good pieces of information or insights that they can relay right into their own personal financial planning lives. So for those of you who have not had the chance to sit in on these sessions before, I'm 15 years with my firm, and I serve individuals and families and help create real financial security. We've done some good sessions before on particular strategies around creating income, on investing and the fundamentals of how to build a portfolio that can truly endure through up and down markets. Today, again, basics, but good stuff. And what I want to do is ask you guys to think big picture about your own financial picture and think about ways that you can improve upon your current habits. That's what I really want as the backdrop for today's session. Thinking about your own financial planning, let's start with a question. What do you want? We can fly by the seat of our pants. We can roll with the punches. We can not think about tomorrow or yesterday and just move along. And that will surely create a less favorable outcome than thinking critically about your future, what's worked well in your past. And as we start to think about our futures, we have to start to define what we really are doing here. Why are we working? Why are we saving? What are we doing? What's the point? We all have our own hopes and dreams for our families, for our professions, where we want to live, how we'll spend our time. Think about yours. No matter what your objectives are, there's no doubt the best way to reach your unique objectives is with planning. And because most of our goals need to be funded in some way with dollars, what we're really talking about here is financial planning. To start your own financial planning journey, I want you to really think about where you stand right now and answer some questions. I hope you guys can see the screen here. It's small. I'm going to go through the questions that I want you to consider. And it'll help you gain clarity on where you stand right now on your own financial journey. So the first question, are you clear on how much money is coming into your pocketbook? Think after healthcare costs, after retirement plan contributions, after tax, what comes in and what goes out? Starting point for any financial planning, like figuring out cash flow. If you don't have clarity, that's a great place to spend some time. What's coming in and what's going out? Question 2, if you were to become sick or hurt and unable to work, what amount of income net of tax can you rely upon from any insurance that you might have, either privately, insurance you own personally, or insurance you may have through an employer arrangement? I'm talking about a long-term disability income insurance plan. Do you know how much income you'd get from that long-term disability income insurance plan if you have one? Question 3, do you have easily accessible monies without taxation, without the need to sell investments or assets for cash? Do you have easily accessible cash in the event of an emergency? That's a really important one. We'll get a little deeper on that in a bit. Question 4, do you know how much you need to save for retirement? The closer we are to retirement, we might think it's easier to answer that question. So for you young folks, don't be dismayed that you don't even know when you can retire yet, let alone how much to save for retirement. Financial planning work can help you easily come to the figures you'll need to start saving, and you'll get clarity on what that looks like. Question 5, do you know your level of debt and how much you pay in interest each month? So many folks lose sight of credit card balances, auto insurance debt, or auto debt, home debt, credit card debt. It can add up. And what are we paying in interest? That's important. Question 6, do you really know the difference between term insurance and permanent life insurance? Question 7, what's your credit score? You should know this. Credit is super important. It's how we can do things like buy homes without all of the money required to do so. Lastly, again, circling back to financial planning in general, do you have defined goals and clarity on what you need to do financially to achieve them? These are important questions. Hopefully, of the 8 questions, you were able to answer quite a few positively. What we're really trying to do is understand ways we can take steps to improve your ability to find happiness, peace of mind, and success in your life. So let's understand a few things. Cash flow, how to protect your income, how to protect your family and your existing assets, how to develop a savings and investment strategy, and how to create a plan to manage any debts that you may have. Today, we're going to cover each of these 4 important categories so that you can start to build a strong financial foundation. All right. I wonder how many of you track your expenses so that you know what's coming in, what's going out, and of the monies that are going out, what you're spending it on. There are apps you can download for this. For you younger folks that might be more inclined to use technology, that could be a great place to help you come to terms with your cash flow picture. So we want to talk about managing the money you have to cover what you need, what you owe, and what you want. And your cash flow really refers to how much you have coming in and going out. Positive cash flow means the income is larger than the outflow. That's no doubt the aim, to manage your expenses such that you have unspent income. You have a surplus. When you have that surplus, we can be very proactive about utilizing it in a thoughtful way and allocating your surplus towards your unique objectives. When we get clarity on what's coming in and what's going out, we'll get confirmation of there being a surplus. Take the inventory of all the ways you're spending your money. If you're not using an app, you can, we have worksheets we can send out to you. Reach out to us if that's of interest. I myself use a worksheet. I don't use an app. And once a quarter or so, I'll look over my expenses and I'll go through things like mortgage, cell phone, groceries, vacation, anniversary gifts, birthday gifts, gym memberships, you name it. Every line item on any outflow. And I add it all up and I subtract it from my take home pay. And I get real clear on how much I have for the quarter to save. It's really great. It drives a lot of confidence that you can take a hold of your financial planning. What's important is to ensure you don't forget about expenses that might only come up once or so a year. Think about, for those of you that live in, a place where there's 4 seasons, you might use air conditioning for a portion of the year. Add the cost to air condition your home. You might have snowy days. You need to have snow removal service. That can add up. So just make sure that you're thinking critically about not just the regular expenses, but those that come up infrequently, and track them, be it vacations, cost to manage your home during the warm months or the winter months, as examples. Now, compare your spending to this rule, the 20-60-20 rule. It's a rule of thumb. It's not perfect, but for those of you wanting to understand of your income, how to allocate it, this is a great place to start. You can look at your budgeting worksheet or your app that you might have to see how your expenses fit in alignment with this rule of thumb. So saving and investing 20% or more, hopefully more, of your gross income should be set aside each month for saving and investing. And in order to make saving a habit, you want to save the amount first before you spend, right? So save it and you won't have the ability to spend it. Make that a habit and a discipline. Build savings in like it's an expense, like it's your mortgage payment. You have no choice. You got to pay it. You got to save the money. Now on to your essential expenses. No more than, say, 60% of your take-home pay should be spent on essential expenses. The essential expenses I'm referencing include things like your house, transportation, food, clothing, your kids, healthcare, insurance, the like, right? Think about those must-have essential expenses. It also includes the must-pay dollars that go towards paying down, say, a credit card or student loans. Those are essential payments. Lastly, this should leave you with about 20% of your take-home pay that you can spend on fun stuff, what we call non-essential or discretionary expenditures. It's the nice to have stuff like going out to eat, new technology that you might have been eyeing, or entertainment, movies, bar tabs, vacation, golf, whatever it might be. This should be about 20%. If your current spending doesn't align with these rules of thumb, don't worry. You can make, if you can make the 20% a habit for savings, it will become easier. And another important note I don't want to overlook is that often clients we serve are charitable and are inclined to be philanthropic in some way. For many people, giving back is important, and it can take many different forms, from volunteering or providing financial donations. No matter what organizations you're inspired to help, it should be something you plan for, whether it be monthly, quarterly, or a one-time annual donation. If financial support is a priority for you, then these donations should be included in your essential expensing as part of your budget, about 60% of your take-home pay. All right, well, what do you want to protect? There are two really big things that you need to consider protecting. A, your paycheck, and your loved ones. Think about your goals, both short and long term, and what would happen to them if you became sick or injured and could no longer work. Would you have a shot at reaching your goals? Well, look, I know this isn't something anybody really wants to be talking about. It's quite morbid, but it's a real possibility that we get sick or we get cancer or we get in an accident, or that there's a premature death. So let's get into what we can do defensively to build security and financial strength in our financial plan. So let's talk about assets that you might own and what you might do to protect those assets. Like, for example, do you own a car? Do you have insurance on your car? Why do you have insurance on the car? Possibly to replace it if you get into an accident. Well, I want to help you see the value of your income as your largest asset to protect. Your income is the funding source of your well-being, of any financial planning you may want to be doing for your goals and objectives. We have to protect the income source funding the plan. It's the starting point of any financial picture, right? So here's what I would ask you to do. Retirement age for most of us on this call is probably 67. So what I'd like you to do is assume how many working years you have till 67, be it 10, 20, 30, and multiply the number of working years you have to 67 by your current income annually. And you're going to determine that to be a much larger figure than the value of your car. And the question is, are you insuring your income so that if something happens to you, you're a money-making machine, right? If something happens to you, you can replace the lost income. The same way you'd replace a car if you're in an accident. I'd imagine you all have car insurance, hopefully good car insurance. I would wonder if you all have the right adequate insurance protecting a much more important asset, which is your income. You can protect your income with a disability income insurance plan. And most folks are surprised to hear that 1 in 4 people become disabled at some point in their career. It's a tragic reality. We get sick, we get hurt. Life doesn't work out perfectly. It can throw curveballs. You might wonder what some of the causes of these disabilities may be. Well, it's not always, I'm fixing a roof and I fall off the ladder. It's typically a sickness or injury that creeps up over time and derails us from being able to show up and perform at our normal capacity in our professional careers. So while these accidents can occur and tragically derail us, it's often something that creeps up over time, a cancer of some sort that might require us to see specialists and get second opinions and do chemotherapy or radiation or have surgeries, and we're just worn out and we can't show up at all to work, or maybe we can't show up and be 100%. That would be a reason why we'd have an income loss. So how many of you here have a disability income insurance plan from your employer? Some of you might, some of you might not. If you do, consider that to be a good thing. And then the question for you on this call that do have a plan as a default through your employer, do you know the percentage of your salary that the insurance would cover if you were disabled? Have you ever thought about that? You should. And what I'll tell you is most employers' insurance plans cover only about 60% of your salary, not including your bonus, And that leaves you with at least 40% less money coming in. Often what we see is that employer insurances are paid for by the employer. So you as the employee just become an employee and get this benefit at no cost. And in that circumstance, this 60% or so benefit is fully taxable, being a result that you're going to take home so much less than you're used to. And that can have a really serious impact on your financial plan, on your family, on your ability to stay the course to meet the objectives that are important for you. So you can get a supplemental disability income insurance plan. If you already have something through work, you'd want to do that if you're qualified. And if you don't have anything through work, you can get a personally owned insurance plan to protect your paycheck, which is your largest asset, very likely. The second piece of protection for your loved ones is what would happen if you don't wake up tomorrow. You might have something through work like life insurance. Maybe it's one-time salary, but is it enough to protect the financial well-being of the people who depended on you? You know, thinking about what you'd want to have covered if something happened. Do you have enough in your current insurance? It's all about making sure you have the adequate amount based on your unique goals for your loved ones. You know, if you determine you might need more than what might be offered through work, you can talk to a financial professional like myself and make sure you understand the different types of insurance that are available and what kind of benefits make the most sense for your unique situation. All right, let's talk about saving. It's far more exciting than becoming sick or dying prematurely. So let's talk about saving. It's an important part of financial security because it helps you build up the funds to cover your goals and also the surprises that life throws at you. Savings being the most important part of achieving your future goals means that we need to be proactive with it. We need to really be thoughtful around savings. And you can't save all of your money because you have expenses to live now. So let's talk about how much you should save. The general rule of thumb, allocate 20% of your gross income to saving and investing. I covered that a few slides back. Create it as a habit by saving before you have the option to spend. Because if we're all, here as humans, it's human nature to spend. Let's save it first and just remove that possibility. The amount you should be saving depends on what you want for the future. Maybe it's more than 20%. But think about your goals, write them down and be specific. And the reason it's important to be specific is because let's say, one of your goals is to buy a home. If that's all you've decided to do as a goal, you need to save for a down payment, but you don't really have an idea of how much that down payment ought to be or for how long you need to save to accumulate enough for the down payment. But if you start to think about whether you want a house or a condo or whether you want to have a 2 or 3 or 4 bedroom home or, start getting more granular about your objective and your goal, I think you can get more clear on how much you'll need for a down payment, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're going to move on to what is super critical to your staying the course if an emergency arises. And I'm not talking about a long-term disability here. I'm talking about life throwing a curveball and your car breaking down, your roof leaking, or you getting sick for a short period of time, you losing your job, being fired or laid off. These are the reasons why it's super important to have accessibility to cash, because if you lose your job, you're not going to just find one immediately. And you don't want to just take the first job that presents itself to you. You're going to want to be able to find the right position in that environment where you're laid off. You don't want to be stressed and just, dipping into investments or retirement assets. You want to have liquidity, and it's important to have what we call a rainy day or emergency fund. no matter what your goals are for the future. So the top priority should be establishing an emergency fund. Rule of thumb, this should be about 6 months of your household expenses. So if it takes you, say, 10 grand to live your lifestyle, you should have about $60,000 of easily accessible liquid dollars. This money can be in a high yield savings, a checking account. It can be cash value in an insurance plan. It could be money market funds that are uninvested in a portfolio. Think about it in that way. And it's okay if you don't have it yet, but start small and add to this bucket of wealth over time. You don't want too much in an emergency fund. Rule of thumb, again, 6 months. You don't want a lot more than that. If you're very conservative, sure, go up a bit, but don't have too much cash, because there's a balance that's important. You want to have enough to be able to weather months, usually about 6 months, but you don't want too much liquid cash because it's inefficient. So just finding that balance is key. All right, let's talk about investing. When you're investing dollars, you've got your emergency fund established, you've got the proper adequate income protections, you've got your life insurances, then you want to start investing. Well, when you invest, you want to invest with purpose. You don't surely don't want to invest on a whim. You don't want to, invest blind, close your eyes and just cross your fingers and hope. Critically analyze what you're investing for. What's the purpose of the investment? What's the outcome you're seeking? Understand your own comfort level with risk and volatility when investing. Understand your time horizon between now and when you'll capitalize on the investment and actually pull money from the account. And, think critically about your unique goals, whether it be investing for college, investing for retirement, investing for a vacation property, or what have you. So investing is particularly important when saving for long-term goals, like a down payment on a home or retirement. So starting small is okay, but recognize the sooner you start saving for a long-term goal, the better. And that's because it allows you to take full advantage of compounding, which can be your very best friend. This is when you're earning interest on interest over time. It makes a huge difference. So let's say you turn 45 and you decide to start investing $100 a month. For simplicity, we'll say you get a 6% annual return, including compound interest. With that return, you can double your money by the time you're 65. Now, hear this. If you started saving 10 years earlier, at age 35, you could triple your money by 65. And that's because you'll be earning interest on your interest. And if you started at age 25, you could quadruple your money by 65. Bottom line here, start saving as early as possible. We're living longer. Retirements can be 3 to 4 decades. It's great news, but you want to have financial security through that long chapter in life. And we have to save more for retirement, and sooner is better. One big problem with financial planning is when we have debt. There's good debt, there's bad debt. We'll get into that. But we want to try to free up money, because when we have debt, we have dollars allocated towards reducing that debt, which could otherwise be invested for our own well-being long-term. So we want to free up money that you can put towards savings and investing. And one way to do that is to be smarter about the debt you might have. If you have some debt and you manage it responsibly, that's great. Just make sure you're being cognizant of interest rates, what you're paying in interest over time, if there's opportunities to be more strategic with any debts that you may have. Remember, all debt's not created equal. So credit card debt is an example of bad debt. And that's because interest rates are typically very, very high. So credit card debt is one of the first things we want to tackle when developing a debt management strategy. The goal, pay off all credit card balances. We want zero credit card debt. So, in an ideal world, you use your credit card, you pay your bills with the credit card, you get points, you get rewards, and then at the end of the month, you balance it. You pay off at the end of each month whatever balance you've accumulated. It's the best way to use credit cards and get free rewards while you're doing it. You build your credit while you're doing it. The problem is when we get in over our head. So if you are already in over your head and you have a credit card balance, please prioritize it and do more than just the monthly minimum payment. If at all possible, pay much more than the minimum monthly payment. In fact, pay the entire balance if you're able. By taking these steps, you'll save more money over the long run, and that will free up cash flow that you can use for other goals that are important for you. Student loan debt is an example of good debt. And the reason we say that is because it's an investment in yourself. The expectation is student loan debt is an investment. It'll pay for itself many times over during your lifetime with better opportunities and higher income. But if you're feeling buried under student loan debt, consult professionals and consider if you have federal loans, you can change your repayment plan. There are options that might be available to you, like forgiveness options. Some loans, depending on the type, are forgivable. Be aware of that stuff. There's different loan forgiveness programs if you're in public service, if you're a teacher, things along those lines. You can also consolidate loans and refinance, not only simplifying your life, but prospectively reducing interest that you pay over time. So you can work with a bank or a credit union or a lending agency and take out a single loan to pay off all the other debt that you might have accumulated in student loans. You could maybe lower your monthly payment doing this and, shorten the length of time you're paying on the debt or elongate it if that's a goal for you, paying more over time. Now, another good debt might be a mortgage. And reason for that is you're building equity in something that, hopefully also grows in value over time. You're also likely able to get tax deductions for the interest you pay on your mortgage and property taxes. So it's important that you're considering all of your debt, considering if you have favorable interest rates, recognizing that as rates fall, you have opportunity to refinance. Think about consolidation. On a mortgage, if you can pay extra, that's a good idea. Maybe you pay an extra month per year and you can reduce the length of time you're paying. Just be very cognizant of debt and its impact on your long-term financial planning. It's critical and it'll make a big difference. Paying extra principal, make sure that any monies you're paying in extra dollars towards a mortgage go right to principal. And make sure that your lender allows for early repayment. Talk about that stuff with them. Let's see here. What are we going on to now? We've covered a lot of ground on spend. So let's consider all this and please know that if there's any follow-up materials you guys might want to see on budget worksheets, I can make them available. Student loan stuff, protecting your income, credit scores, I can help you with that. So just don't hesitate to reach out. Let's move on now to recap on these steps towards building strong financial planning strength. Firstly, we talked about understanding your cash flow. We talked about protecting your income, managing debt, developing investment strategies and savings plans. These are simple, basic items that you might think are, taught early on and always remembered, but it's important that we have these discussions and these sessions because so many of us have our heads down in our careers or focusing on our personal lives, and we don't really step back and think big picture. So getting a handle on this stuff, it may seem overwhelming, but it's easiest when you're working with a financial professional. you can understand how to prioritize which goals you might have, how to create a plan to ensure you're going to have a high probability and high amount of success in achievement of those goals that are unique to you. And if you come into a bonus or a windfall or an inheritance of some sort, be smart with it, and don't hesitate to reach out to financial professionals like myself. So we're going to do a Q&A here now, and I want you guys to know it. You can call me 215-981-1868. That's my direct office line. For any of you guys that have very personal, unique questions you might not want to address here on our Q&A session, it's 215-981-1868. So thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Kyle. So folks, we are at the Q&A portion of the webinar. Please post your questions in the comment section and we'll load them onto the stream for Kyle to answer. So Kyle, while we're still waiting on audience member questions, I do have some questions that I'd like to ask myself. So I guess first question, and for folks who may be tuning in late, they might have missed some of this information at the beginning of the presentation. So just wanted to get some, a refresher on certain topics. My first question is probably a popular one for most people. How can people start saving even with limited income? Any tips?
Yeah, the tip would be analyze your expenditures first. Like, clearly, if there's a low income, there will be lesser savings that you can do to try to free up your ability to save. Analyze what you're spending on, and you might find that if you're careful with tracking your budget and your outflows, you're spending a lot more on non-essential items than you maybe should be. Going out to meals can add up, as an example. And if you are critically considering your expense list, you might find some you can chop off. And if you get rid of a Netflix subscription and free up a couple more bucks that way, now you can save it.
Gotcha. Thank you. And I guess a follow-up to that question. You did go over the I believe it was the 20-60-20 rule earlier. So when it comes to managing those expenses, any recommended strategies to help manage the day-to-day expenses effectively, so we can keep track of what we're spending
Yeah,
when it comes to
like I said, for me, usually quarterly. Sometimes if I'm slacking, it's twice a year. But I'm really cognizant of my outflows, and they change over time, especially as your income increases and your family grows and you make strides in your professional career. You have additional expenses, and you want to account for all of them and always know what's coming in and what's going out. You want to run your personal financial life like a business. Any business owner should have an idea of what's going to come in and what their outflows will look like. How can we be confident in our business model if we don't, right? So I think it's just really important to do regular accounting of what your outflows look like, be it family vacations, new memberships to country clubs, or whatever. Like, just constantly account for your outflows, because they do change over time as your life evolves.
For sure. Thank you. So we do have an audience member question. Our audience member Vince asks, can you address the decision process in term life and permanent life, such as custom, variable, universal life?
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry,
It's a great question, because in the world of financial planning, as we zone our attention into a particular topic like life insurance, it can get really complex really quickly. There are all different types of insurance: universal life, variable life, whole life, term life. So Vince, I appreciate your question around how to develop a process to make a decision on which one might be best. Firstly, I'll suggest you don't have to pick one. You can have multiple different insurance policies with different structures. Secondly, I'll suggest something that might seem like an oxymoron, but I think the process to decide on which one you want would be which insurance plan will be there when I die. You don't want temporary term insurance if your goal is to have a payout at your death for any objective you might have. So what I'll tell you is term insurance is temporary and permanent insurance lasts your whole life. We can really boil the world of insurance down into two different categories: term or temporary insurance that will terminate, and permanent insurance, which is insurance that lasts your whole life and will pay the death benefit to your beneficiary regardless of when you pass. So I think it does come down to cash flow because you pay for what you get. Term insurance is temporary, so it's cheaper. You have to understand the cost associated with these different structures and then determine your goals and your cash flow picture to make a good, well-informed decision. Often that's done with the help of a financial professional.
Great. Thank you, Kyle. And thank you for the question, Vince. Vince did follow up with another question, and this is a bit specific. I have the IEEE term. Is that cost effective after turning 65 to retain this?
I can't speak to your particular policy. What I can suggest is most term insurance policies get very, very expensive the older we are. Think about it. It's a lot more expensive from a risk perspective for an insurance company to provide coverage to, a 55-year-old who might have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, might be a little bit overweight at that time, might have some health complications, as compared to a 25-year-old who might be Superman. The older we are, the more likely we are to die, and therefore the cost of insurance rises with time. There are certain insurance structures that fix your cost and they never will go up. So it's important to ask your insurance provider for a cost schedule. Vince, that would be my recommendation. Get a cost schedule for your insurance policy, and you'll be able to see at future years what the cost of coverage will be, and you can make a decision on if it's worth it for you or if there's a restructuring that could take place to be driving more efficiency in your planning.
Thanks for the question, Vince. And folks, just to let you know, IEEE, as mentioned, IEEE does have member professional liability insurance program. We've included the link to it below, so to learn more about the details of that, feel free to check it out. So Kyle, our next audience member question. Our audience member Kyle asks if a workplace offers 401k matching, would it be better to prioritize investing into the 401k to receive the employer match as opposed to a Roth IRA, or is it best to invest in both if possible?
Great name, Kyle, and great question. What I'll tell you is surely invest in your 401k so as to capitalize on the entirety of your employer match. If you don't, you're leaving money on the table. If possible, surely leverage both Roth and 401k. Often we see clients benefiting from what we call tax diversification, and high level Roth retirement dollars can be tax-free in retirement, whereas your traditional retirement dollars, think traditional 401k or traditional IRA, any dollars you take from those buckets are fully taxable in retirement. So I like your question because it gets at an important philosophical point here, which is I think you're best off to have both different sources during your retirement years, because if you have some tax-free income sources, you have some power and control over your tax bracket, and you can leverage tax-free dollars from a Roth.
Thanks for the question, Kyle. So I think that's it for audience member questions so far. While we still wait on some more questions, I have some additional questions of my own. This is probably a question you get pretty often, especially when it comes to investing, just because there's so much that goes, into the decision-making process, and there's so many options. But Kyle, what investment options are suitable for beginners who may not have any insight into that at all, or
Good question. One that comes to mind for me right off the bat, because that's somewhat of a loaded question, but I think I have a good answer that's quite direct. If we're talking about investing for retirement, the target date or life cycle investment funds that are likely available in your employer sponsored retirement plan can be a great place. Reason I say that is it takes the onus off of you to manage risk and to rebalance and to pick investments when you're in a target date fund, say target 2050. That is an investment strategy targeted to your retiring at that date. And these funds have made it as simple and turnkey as is possible for novice and beginner investors to create value towards their own retirement. These funds become more conservative over time so as to have a focus on principal preservation as you get closer to retirement and in retirement. So you don't have to worry about managing the investment strategy, and it's easy, simple, turnkey, and can provide really good results as compared to a beginner trying to comprise a portfolio of stocks, bonds, or funds on their own.
Gotcha. Thank you. And I'm sure, having a financial planner help you with those kinds of details would probably be very beneficial too, right?
For
So,
sure.
which leads me into this question from our audience member. Miguel asks, "How do we choose a financial planner, and how does this work?"
Good question. You would choose someone or some firm with ideally good experience, good resources, a track record with references. You probably don't want to put all your faith and trust in someone who just started and is completely on their own without any support. You'd probably have better experiences with an advisor who's got great support, great resources, a strong firm behind them with a good reputation, with a lot of experience through the good and the bad in the market. And I think also relevant to your question would be, are advisors charging a fee that makes sense based on the value they provide you? Said differently, analyze what you get for what you give the advisor. That's a big part of it. And, be with someone you trust, align with an advisory team that you don't have to worry about. Your aim in hiring a team is to offload all the responsibility of financial management to someone else so that you can focus your time on your work, your family, and your interests. So make sure that when you're giving the keys to your ship to someone to be the captain of, that you trust them inherently.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thanks for the question, Miguel. And folks, with that being said, if you are looking for a financial planner, or need help with your financial planning and literacy, feel free to reach out to Kyle as well and schedule a consultation. We've included the link to his page below as well, so you can access that. So on to the next question, Kyle. Our audience member Pam asks, for the 20% savings goal, should the company match be included or just my contribution?
That's a good question. And I would encourage you to have the 20% be just your contribution and allow the company match to be like the cherry on top. The point here is just save as much as you're able. And if you're getting a match, consider that to be a bonus. But structure your own savings plan based on your own unique cash flow picture.
Gotcha. Thank you. Our next question Anne asks, how does one choose an investment advisor? Would it be different from a financial advisor?
No, the feedback would be generally the same. They are different disciplines in that you might have a financial advisor that builds a financial plan for you, but does not have the ability or licenses or wherewithal to invest wealth on your behalf. But there are surely advisors that can do financial planning work for you and also manage investments. So, it's the same mantra: trust the investment advisor, ensure they're part of a team that's got experience and resources, uh, and know that when you hire a professional, you're going to get better outcomes than trying to go at it alone, surely over the long run.
Fantastic, thank you. And so, Kyle, so our audience member couldn't send in her question, but I just got it directly from her and wanted to ask on her behalf. Our audience member Lauren asks, in retirement, in what order should savings be drawn down? For example, should withdrawals from a 401k come before withdrawals from an IRA?
Great question. The typical liquidation order that makes most sense from a high level is to draw down upon your non-qualified assets first. So your taxable accounts should be leveraged first from a high level perspective. So use your taxable brokerage account dollars before your tax favored IRA or 401k dollars. And to take it a step further, I would suggest preserving your Roth and your cash value in life insurance plans to be the last bucket you might call upon, because those are your most tax efficient assets. So high level, it's taxable dollars first, then IRA, 401k type dollars, and then Roth and other highly favored with tax treatment in mind, those other dollars in cash value life insurance.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you to Lauren for the question. Hope you're still tuning in right now, or if not, for our folks who aren't able to stay the entire time, this webinar will be available on demand at any time after the live stream ends. You will be able to access through the same links that you used to connect today. Kyle, so our next question, Emily asks, can you explain what fiduciary financial advisor means?
Yes, for sure. The fiduciary label essentially is referencing the standard of care that will be provided to you as a client. There's a difference. When you're a fiduciary, you're held to the highest standard of care, and you're obligated to ensure that the financial planning is in the best interest of the client every day. If there is a lack of fiduciary standard, then the individual or firm you may be working with, they are not required to ensure that your financial planning is in your best interest. They just need to make sure that at the time you start the plan, it's sensible for you and in your best interest. But thereafter, they're not on the hook to maintain that standard. So fiduciary really references a firm or individual looking out for your best interest, obligated by law in the career. And I would think you surely want to align with a fiduciary who's going to look out for your best interest at all times, not just when you implement your plan, but on an ongoing basis thereafter.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. There's so many different, when it comes to financial, planning, literacy, there's so many different terms, so many different, kinds of advisors. It really does get a bit overwhelming to try and remember them all. But I'm sure reaching out to one or being in contact with one can definitely help lighten that burden of
Sure.
finding out yourself. So, folks, we are approaching the end of the hour, so we'll take a few more questions. Kyle, this next question from our audience member, Wes. Wes asks, what is a tax-efficient way to liquidate real estate in retirement?
That's a very loaded question. There's a lot to it. And my simple answer would be consult a tax professional, qualified tax professional, to help you given your unique circumstances. Everyone's tax picture is different. There's a lot of factors that go into what tax you might owe. So consult a professional, CPA or tax accountant.
Hope that helps, Wes. Thanks for the question. And audience member Vince asks, do you have a recommendation or link for a basic retirement planning calculator that includes our net worth at the time of retirement and combined Social Security for high-level view to see how I believe it may.
I understand the question. I don't have a recommendation to go to anyone other than a financial professional directly. And if you go to a financial professional and you say, hey, my aim is to determine from a high level, if I'm on track and what type of income I can derive during my retirement years based on my current financial picture, my savings habits, my assets, go to a financial professional, let them know. What we have software that we use. It's proprietary software. I wouldn't be able to send you a link to do it yourself, but I'd be glad to spend some time with you to make sure that we use it in the right way to give you the right results and real clarity on how you're uniquely tracking for your goals.
Gotcha. Thank you. And thanks for the question, Vince. So Kyle, this will be the last question, just one that I was curious about and wanted to ask. You mentioned that there's, different kinds of debts. You mentioned refinancing as an option for some of them. At what times, if any, are refinancing a loan not recommended? Or would you always recommend it?
I would not always recommend refinancing a loan. You need to consider interest rates, your monthly payment, your cash flow picture, the tenure in which you'll be paying back, how long the term will be. So I guess in short, the simple answer is to refinance if there's a positive financial outcome for you in doing so, in either cost savings or shortening the term in which you'll be paying out the amount of years.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. All right, folks. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I know we have a lot of many audience members who are very interested in learning more about these topics and getting their own financial planning in order. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today and providing your insight into building a strong financial foundation and helping us being able to make informed decisions about our money. Really appreciate you joining us and great to have you again.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
And thank you to our audience members for tuning in and for your great questions. IEEE-USA webinars are designed to help you find your next job, maintain your career, and learn about other career building strategies and public policy developments that affect your profession. Did you know that IEEE members can take advantage of exclusive and discounted pricing on insurance and a variety of products and services, where available, that can add up to substantial savings? Discover what IEEE member discounts can offer you. And finally, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channels on social media and check back daily for future live stream updates. We'll see you again next time.
I am trying to build a sustainable electronics industry. The things that we have just don't last as long as they used to, but they could. Every time a new gizmo comes out, we take it apart, find out what makes it tick. We need more engineers in the world. Engineers make the world better. They're designing the systems that keep the world working. So that's why I've been involved with IEEE-USA, is I want to see more kids get excited about engineering. We are working with IEEE-USA to create a world where repair is normal again.